Hi everybody, thanks for checking out this episode, and also I wanted to say a big thank you to all those who have subscribed to the channel and are liking what I'm doing. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you are. I know my shows are a little eclectic. We'll calm down a little bit as I start to find my way through everything, but it's sort of how my mind works, and so the show is a little bit of an extension of my head. I'm very eclectic and I will build several things at once. But today's episode is about the Galileo. Here it is. The Galileo shuttlecraft from Polar Lights. Now, I have talked about this briefly in one of my earlier episodes, just as something that came in, and talked a little bit about it. But I thought it might be fun just to kind of go through a little bit of the build process on something like this, because it's not a complicated build, but like everything else, if you're new to the hobby, and hopefully there's a couple of you that are watching who are, then it's sort of like, well, where do I start? How do I start? What do I do? How do I think about these things? The truth of the matter is, the instructions on these are very easy to follow, and just make a game plan for yourself and look at it through a different lens. Does anything need to be sub-assembled? Do you need to sub-assemble anything? When do you paint it? How do you paint it? All that nonsense. And so I want to say that, you know, the most important thing to remember with all of these builds is that it's a hobby. And there are going to be so many different kinds of hobbyists who come to this. There are those purists who want a absolute canon version of how the shuttle appeared in the show. And there are those who build for the fun of it. Those who build, they want to put their models into competition. And I think that's the most exciting part of it, because a lot of these men and women who are involved in the hobby are really artists in and of themselves. They don't necessarily produce art for a living, but the skill that it demonstrates is really terrific. And there are a couple of websites that I'll actually put in the description link that I'd like you to go check out, primarily because I want you to see their work and how they take you through the various steps of what they build. Lots of fun. And that's a big part of my show too, is to give shout outs to all of those who are building or have their own channels around the community that I personally enjoy. And again, if I haven't mentioned you on the show, it doesn't mean I don't like your channel. It just means I haven't got around to talking about it yet. But I promise you I will, because that's a big part of the fun of what I do. But anyway, this build, which is a lot of fun, is it's the Galileo shuttlecraft from the 1960s television series Star Trek. Now, I'm looking here because I can see on my reference material that the shuttlecraft was assigned to the U.S. Enterprise, and it was the first of its type to be seen on screen in the franchise, appearing in the episode The Galileo 7. So the first time we ever saw this beauty was in the original 1960s series in an episode called The Galileo 7. Now, it appeared 4 more times on camera before it was repainted as the Galileo 2 with a full-size exterior that they actually built. I believe that refurbished full-scale exterior is now available to see in Houston at the Space Center. I believe it's still there. I believe it's still there. So there was a a video produced by Boyd Crompton of Trekworks several years ago. He and a bunch of friends went to check it out. It's worth looking at. I'll drop that in the description as well. But anyway, this kit is a relatively faithful reproduction of that, and a lot of the lines are really perfect. There was a kit that was put out by Randy Cooper several years ago, but some of the lines weren't quite right on it, I believe, but he does terrific work. So and it comes with an interior, so if you wanted to spend a few extra shekels, I highly recommend checking out Randy Cooper and his work. I love his kits. I build his kits. I'll be building a couple more in later episodes. But today, I just wanted to go through the basics of where we are on this particular build. Now, what I have done, in the interest of sanity, is start to put it together just so that I could get a coat of primer on this. And even though I'm putting an interior in it, and even though I've caused a little bit of concern for myself, I can get my hand in here. I have a big hand, but I can get it in here, so I will be able to work on this. But it does ask you to put a sub-assembly together, but it assumes that you're not going to do anything else other than just build it as is, paint it, and that's it. So it would want you to get to this part. It is 3 pieces for the base, a piece of the rear engine goes in, the sides, the front window, and you get to this. And it went together relatively nicely. There were a few little bumps for me along the way in putting this kit together. Primarily because I just didn't get lucky with the mold. This one was a little warped, and it had some issues. But you know, again, that's part of the fun of this hobby, is you do have to figure some of those things out and decide what you can live with and what you can't live with. Now, most of the times there's a fix for these things. Just picking off some schmutz here while I'm talking to you. Because it is plastic, we've got plenty of options, putties and fillers and resins and all kinds of things that we'll talk about as we go through the series that can get you out of a lot of scrapes. But again, I want to remind you, it is plastic. Now, if you make a mistake, you can always get another kit. Sometimes I buy 2 kits because inevitably something will go wrong, or a piece is missing or something, I don't know. Now that can get expensive, so I'm not suggesting everybody does that, but it is a way to keep your sanity if you are building one of these things and you find yourself in a situation where your kit, for whatever reason, isn't going together nicely. So what I've done is I've sort of prepped this a little bit for paint. I've sub-assembled the nacelles as well. So one of the things that I like to do is sub-assemble what I can and start to get an idea of where I might need some cleaning up and some putty and that sort of a thing. And what I've done here is I've glued together the nacelle tubes, but I have not done anything beyond that. I've also built the brace for the nacelle, and that just simply fits nicely like this. And there are 2 of those, obviously, so both sides go on, and they fit together very nicely. Now, the thing about it too, which I think is really fun, is that on the television series itself, there was a gaping hole between the actual strut and the ship. It was sort of part of the construction of it. Now, we'll get these as tight to the body as we possibly can, but we will not be puttying that to try to keep it as accurate as we can. Now, I'm not going for 100% Canon, meaning my paint job and some of the choices that I'm making may not necessarily work, but that's okay. There are many examples of how this kit gets built, and that's what I love about everybody out there, is they all do their own thing. The paint scheme is easily checked out by getting a frame grab of the actual series. You can see the restored Galileo online. There are plenty of opportunities to try to get as close as you can. I'm just going to have fun with it, to be honest with you, but it is a beautiful kit. And there are some examples of that. There are some guys who are actually lighting up the nacelles, and they're so that the engines in front, the impulse engines, actually spin. But I won't be doing that, and you never saw it that way on the series. So they were never lit up like that especially on the ground. And this kit is going to be displayed in its parked position. But I am going to be doing a few mods to it because I think there's a lot of fun to that. And I'm just going to talk briefly about some of those before we go to put a coat of primer on this thing. Now, I'm going to take these off just because it's a little easier for me to play with it when the butter dish is on the desk. So one of the things I talked about earlier on in a previous episode was the fact that it didn't come with an interior, and I'm going to put an interior in it. I got my interior off of Shapeways, and it's a lot of fun. You can certainly scratch build your own. There are guys who are doing that, and that's a lot of fun. And I could possibly do that myself, or probably should have. I may even do that on a later episode, is just scratch build an interior of something, just to have fun with it. But what I've done so far is I have started to put some fiber optics into the pre-drilled holes that come with this particular kit. And I'm going to show you on PhilCam what that looks like. So we'll cut to PhilCam here. Here's PhilCam. And you can see the detail on this is pretty cool. So I've started by putting some fiber optic line behind there. I've got quite a ways to go here before this is complete. The reason why I put my fiber optics in first is because I don't want to scratch any of my surfaces, at least I'm going to try not to. So these have been put in with about, I would say, 3/4 of an inch of overlay here on the front, and the idea simply is once I've painted it, I'll just go ahead and clip these back. In fact, I could probably clip these back a little more than they are now. I'll do it with the trash can so we don't make too much of a mess, but that will make it a lot easier for me to just sort of go ahead and trim them all the way back to the base, and they'll be nice and clean. But that will be fun. You also get the chairs as well. Now the chairs were black in the original series. I'll show you one of the chairs up close on PhilCam. Beautifully detailed. Beautifully detailed with the bases. Now there are some files online that will allow you to 3D print your own seats, but they don't have the bases. In Lou Del Maso's Star Trek Aztec Dummy, he's built this. He built an interior, but he 3D printed his own seats, but they didn't have bases, and he had to build his own bases, and he did a great job of that. But these came with the bases. They'll be all in black except for the knobs at the side, which will be in silver. Now what I've done is I have put a floor together here, and that drops in, and then what I'll do is I'm going to figure out just exactly how I'm going to make this flush to the side, but I don't think I'll have too much trouble because the actual interior door frame piece will fit over sort of the threshold, which holds in the back of the door. Will sit over this quite nicely. So by the time that trim is in, I think I'll be in great shape. And I'll show you that on PhilCam, so you can see that this floor here is sitting quite nicely. And then what I will do is I will start to put in the chairs here, so that I can start to figure out exactly where they go or have to go, and the placement of those chairs, which is kind of important. Because it's going to allow me then to figure out where my back wall is. And I happen to have scratch built a back wall. So what I did was I took some 1mm plastic sheeting, and I essentially figured out my angles. Does require a little bit of math, I'm sorry. I was not good with math either, but what can you do? And I've sandwiched those together with some 1mm by 2mm plastic strips. And then I created a sort of the interior of the door here by putting plastic strip around it. And that was all glued together with this, which is the plastic extract bond for styrene and ABS. There's a couple of versions of it. There's this one, which is a general purpose one. It will glue more than just the styrene. And then there's the genius of something that used to be called 10x7. It's no longer called 10x7. You can't buy it as 10x7 anymore. You buy it as styrene tacket 2. But it is the 10x7. It does not come with an applicator brush, but I use just an old paintbrush, and it doesn't destroy the brush. You just the bristles actually stay quite loose, and you can just dab it on, and it's capillary action as well. So. And that created my wall, which needs a little bit of cleaning up and some painting. But the point is, there's the wall. And then what I did was I figured out where exactly do I want my wall. And I'm figuring I want my wall about something like this. About something like that. Put the chairs in, at least on this one side. And I'll do them on the other side, just so that you can see how this is going to look. It's great fun. Looking backwards. Oh. Come on, cooperate. One more chair. There you go. And so let me use PhilCam. Through the window, that's what it's going to look like. That's kind of fun, isn't it? And then as you look inside, you get the rear door. And all the chairs set up. Now obviously I'm going to need to come in with some styrene like this and work on my walls, but I'll do that, and I'll put some other fun stuff on it too. And I've got some fun stuff for the walls. You can see here, which came with the Shapeways kit, I've got 2 little lamps for the pilot and the co-pilot on the wall next to them, and I may try to light those, I'm not sure. And some other boxes and gadgets which can be put on the walls. And as I've mentioned, I'm going to use some of this styrene here, and I'm going to build the walls up a little bit, because in this particular model, the sidewalls are exposed, and I'll show you that actually. Let's go back to PhilCam. PhilCam's getting very popular, but you can see in here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Let me get a pointer, and you can see here where those walls are exposed. And now obviously all these light leaks will be dealt with, and we'll talk about how you deal with light leaks a little later. But you can see there that that just needs to be filled in, and I will do that. And the other reason for the wall is to hide the guts of my electronics, and I also need to be able to put a light back here for my rear engine, which you can see here. You can see here is in two pieces. Now, what I did was the piece of plastic clear that you are supposed to put on the inside bracket in the back here comes clear. What I've done is I just took a little sanding stick and I have sanded it down on both sides just to sort of frost it up, and that will create some nice diffusion for me. It may need a little more, we'll see. And then I'll put just a little strip of LED lights in there, and I may even possibly actually paint this blue with Tamiya clear blue, and then that should look pretty cool. And I'm going to light that up with a lighting board from Tenor Controls, and this is it here. This is the pack you get. It's called the Control Consoles or Computer Panels Lighting Kit. Check it out on tenorcontrols.com. Ralph Tenaglia, who owns Tenor Controls, is so amazing. You can send him an email and say, hey Ralph, I'm working on this, and this. Could you do this for me? Or could you build a little board for me? Or could you do, and he'll do it for you, a one-off. And it's not outrageously expensive. I mean, the most you'll probably ever pay is $40, $50, something like that. And you've got a really great board. And this particular board of his comes with a 5-year warranty. I'll just pull out the board quickly here, just so that you can see it. Look at this. It's really beautifully done. And the instructions are very simple. It's just plug and play. And this particular board is going to give you all kinds of blinkies and flashies. And so I may have this pulsing, or I may just have it on. I haven't decided yet. But that's one of the fun things about this hobby. You can do whatever you want. And he gives you a switch and a battery clip and all that nonsense. But I haven't quite decided yet what I'm going to do for the base. Now, I did contact Jerry at HDA Model Works with an X. I'll put that in the description link as well. Jerry's amazing, and he actually built the coolest base I've ever seen for Boyd Compton at TrekWorks. But it was for the Randy Cooper model, not for this particular kit. But the principle is the same. It's really cool. It looks like the shuttle bay landing platform on top, and on the front it looks like one of the control surfaces from the original bridge. Great fun. And I asked him if he would consider building something like that for me for this, and he is working on something. So I'm hoping that in the next few months something might appear. If it doesn't, I have plan B, and we'll talk about that later down the road. The other thing I did was I created a door which will go into the back here, just to sort of hide it. But I put it into two pieces so it appears as though, you know, it has this sort of louvering effect, which is great fun. I'll show you that on PhilCam. We're getting carried away with PhilCam here today. Why not? You see, so it looks something like that. Now everything's got to be painted and cleaned up, but isn't that fun? That's great fun. And you can see, I'll turn this around, you can see I've created a nice space for myself to put in some strip lining to light the engine up. And then looking forward through the window, we've got this wonderful console, and that will go in something like that. I have to quite figure out how, but that goes in like that. And then of course we've got the forward chairs like that. Isn't that great? Great fun. And so the other, lots of other things to talk about too and think about with this particular kit. One of the other things that you've got to think about if you're going to go down this crazy road is what are you going to do with the doors? Let me pull out the rear wall for you, because the doors themselves are another challenge, which is equally fun to think about. I'm still wrestling with that. Now, what you get is this. This is what you get, and it's a solid piece. Now, interestingly enough, the floorboard, the piece that raises up, sort of creates the bottom of the door. So the door ultimately looks like this when it's closed. And when it opens, this particular flap comes down onto the nacelle board, so you step off of it with a little step. But for this particular kit, which is a mystery to me, is there's no door. There's no way to open the top. So while the bottom will drop, the top will stay sealed. And I'll show you that here. But you can see it stays closed like this, which I think is really strange. So, what I intend to do, besides throw things in the trash, what I intend to do is, I think I'm going to cut this in half, and I'm going to figure out how to have my doors slide open. So you'll be able to pull these apart and they'll slide to the left and slide to the right. Otherwise, you can't see in the side there. Now, having said that, I may also, since I'm building this as if it is landed and people have just stepped out, I may just have these doors partially opened, like glue them in, but partially open so that you can see through, and it appears as though everybody's left and you're sort of checking out the spaceship while everybody is left, something like that. I don't know. I lots to figure out. Lots of fun. And then there are some other really fun things to do on this kit. One of them is the rear, and here it is. It's the rear landing leg, which will go sort of. My big fingers are in the way. I apologize, but it goes on the back like that. And now, the reason why I think that's fun is because it's supposed to be a brass or some kind of metal. Let's call it unobtainium for the purposes of this show. But it was made of some kind of metal. And what I love about that is I love making metal pieces and then giving them a real finish. And that'll be fun to do. We can do that with our Tamiya colors and some dry brushing and some washes, and we can have a lot of fun with that. So I really enjoy industrial things and making things look weathered and worn, and so we'll have some fun with that. And then that's the rear brace. And then the other thing that I'm going to have some fun with is this control panel. Now it is part of the rear of this model, and it looks like that when it's in. And they are kind enough to give you some box art of what that looks like. Here that is, right here. And let me do fill cam again. So you can see here that the control panel, if you choose to have it open, has a lot going on. Now what I can do, what you can do, and what we'll do, and I'll show you that when we get there, is we can have a lot of fun with that, because we can actually put some rubber hoses in here. We can add some more gack. We'll dry brush this. We'll have a lot of fun with that and really detail it out. And you know, that'll be part of the fun of this kit. It's just giving it a little gack and making it look really kind of punchy. There are some decals that come with this, but they're kind of a little one-dimensional. I think we can do a little better with that. And there's actually even a the actual panel door. You can have it either way. You can actually have it closed if you choose to, or you can have it open. I'm going to have it in the open position, like this, with all the gack exposed, because I think it's just a fun way to display my model. And so that's where we are. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a coat of primer on this. Now the primer I'm using is Duplicolor. It is the Automotive Primer series. It's the filler, deep scratches, and it sands easily. It's ideal for metal, fiberglass, and wood interior and exterior. Make sure you paint with this in a well-ventilated area. Make sure you hear that rattle can. They don't call it a rattle can for nothing. You gotta rattle it, and really rattle it. Give it a good shake for a few minutes, guys, because if this isn't mixed up properly, you're gonna be in a world of hurt. The other thing I would say to you is, get some warm water and soap on this before you do anything, just in case there's any release agents left on this kit. You'll get a better result when you go to prime it. And we'll get a coat of primer on this. And so the next time we come back, I will have done a little more work on how I'm going to wire this thing, what I did for the side panels to hide those, and perhaps even we'll do a test of the impulse or the engines in the rear of the piece. We'll do that on the next build episode. Now that might not come next, but I will definitely get it out in the next few episodes after this airs, so that you can continue to follow along with me. Let me know if you're building this as well. I'd love to hear from you and what you're doing to your particular Galileo. So thanks for your time today. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe. It's great fun having you along. I really appreciate everybody who has subscribed. Please stay well, stay safe, and build something, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.